Supposed Gloves here, and today I'm going to show you how to make this track. Here is the original. It's the Marshmello and Breathe with an E on the end. Breathe Carolina ID. It's an unreleased track. Here it is, but it's like a free download. I don't know what the deal is, okay? Someone gave me a link to a thing, and they said, can you try and make something that sounds like this? So that's that. And so here's my version. And now I gave myself a time constraint of about half hour. So for a half hour, I find it a pretty decent attempt of it, but it's definitely not like, you're going to be like, whoa, that sounds really different. And that's because it does. So yeah, so there are like basically 4 parts to this. There's the lead line, which the timbre of this particular lead line, I know I didn't get close, but I have theories on how you could get closer yourself if you want to spend more time on it. And there's of course the bass line. Now I felt like the bass is probably the closest thing I have. There's the drums. Let's see here. There's the melody, the lead line, which is the melody, the bass, the drums, and then the impact sounds that we have here. So I class those as a separate thing. They're the filler sounds in the track that make it sound full. It's a pretty thin orchestration. This isn't really an orchestration. Arrangement. It's a thin arrangement. And so these sounds become very important. So as far as the impact sounds go, just go find some cool impact sounds. I own Black Octopus Leviathan, so I like to go in there. I have other places, but it's just easier to reach for this kind of a sound. And so it's a combination of those. And when you put them all together, you get that. Now, I do have this kick, which is a pretty beefy kick at this point in time. Relative to the rest of the mix, of course, it's always relative in the mix. And a lot of the snare, I went looking for a snare like his. That boom, ja. And I just was like, forget it. I'm not going on this crazy snare hunt. But I settled on that and this. And you see there's actually a delay and stuff going on. I sent him through a verb send and something with a reverb and a delay. Now onto the bass sound, because that's probably what I think is the coolest thing. So if we solo just the bass and turn off, the lead and the sub, that is it. Oh, and there's also a audio file. Gotcha. Yes. So that's kind of hidden in the pattern because I'm so organized. Okay, so it's this. That's what it sounds like. And it's kind of tiny by itself, but when you put it in the context of the mix, it fits nice and snugly where it wants, snugly where it wants to. So it's just a saw wave. I just opened it up, turn on a saw wave, and as you can see there, the sub is on. That contributes a ton if I take it away. So it just adds that little boom, boom. I guess it doesn't contribute a ton. It just contributes. It's just, it's a sub. It likes to help out where it can. Next up, we have Unison. It's on 2. Originally, I had this off for a little more of a tight sound. But if you listen to the one in here, it's sort of got this wow, this bigger sound to it. And that is because it's stereo. And so I knew, and it's got a particular kind of filter going on too. So first I aimed for the filter, then I added the stereo side of things. So I did not use chorus because I didn't want chorusing. I just wanted unison, a little bit of delay, and the pitch variation and the panning. I turned the panning down to bring it in a little bit and sort of hone it where I wanted it. And the pitch variation is basically, it's contributing to the difference between the two so that it makes the stereo image more apparent. I'm using the ribbon distortion. If I turn it off, that's what you got, which, maybe you like that more. But I kind of settled on the ribbon distortion. Now this is going into track 17. On track 17, we have a whole bunch of good things going on. First up is the filter. Now, if you listen to theirs got this wow, and their stereo image is a little bit wider. I could continue to try and move towards that, but I was just kind of like, you know what? This is good enough where I'm at right now. I'm not going to pull any more of my hair out trying to get any closer because I'm losing hair like a madman. So the Q is pretty small, and if you listen to theirs, that wow, that is clearly the sign of a particular type of Q filter movement where there's some sort of a resonance boost moving somewhere in the sound. And I couldn't get that particular movement with this filter. I already knew I wasn't gonna. So I decided to do the next best thing, and my voice just cracked, and that is create my own sort of resonance boost. And that's what this guy is. Now, I could probably do this to give it a higher boost and sort of shape my curve a little bit more. And move for something like that. But I've connected it to what I'm automating here. So I'm automating the frequency on this low pass. And it's simply going boom, boom. And throughout the track, it changes. It's a pretty easy rhythmic line to get. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then some sort of a chord hit or whatever. Boom, boom, boom. And whatever. Hey, okay, they're in on it too. If you heard that. And so it's a pretty simple line. Now you will notice I have this lower line. If I get rid of that lower line, it's like still pretty full and beefy, but this just adds a little more oomph to it. It's a subtle thing. I could bring it up, make it much less subtle, which, you know what? I think I'm going to do that because I kind of like it. But again, you should make these decisions in the context of a mix, which doing it by itself is not a good idea because maybe now it's covering something that it wasn't covering before. So the other stuff's pretty basic. It's a wave shaper. I messed with this wave shaper quite a bit. It's also the reason you hear that ew at the end. That little, you hear that little, or how, I don't know how to say it. It's separate it from the sound so you can hear it. But there's like a plasticky release sound, almost like a door creak or something. If I get rid of it, you see, that's not there anymore. So it's also there's also it's there during the sound, but it's present in the higher harmonics a lot more obviously. It doesn't go at the end. It's like a really fast pitch bend or whatever. And then lastly, I have a Maximus, which Maximus is very important in this process. You might like that more. If you like that more, it's, as you can see, it's going to hit the limiter really hard. So when you introduce the limiter, which Maximus is acting as a limiter right now, a multi-band limiter basically, it hits a roof. And so it's, as you can see, it's the peak. The reason it changes so much is because it's crushing against that top. You see, this is the input signal, this purple line. And what happens is the way it hits Maximus is different than the way it hits the fruity limiter, which is also being hit. And you can see it's not even peaking. What the junk is up with that? Oh, that's because Maximus. So if we turn Maximus off, you see it comes through right nice and clear. And this is trying to be as transparent as possible. So anyways, Maximus, basically moral of the story is Maximus junks up your signal chain. You may or may not like that. But if you like this sound, you're going to want to bounce it. Because if you try mixing it later, you could change this drastically. So you want to mix it and then record it that way. Because if you turn down the faders now and try and do other moves, you'll have changed the timbre because you'll change the way it's hitting all these things. Actually, I believe these are post faders, so it wouldn't change your inserts necessarily. But anyways, just be careful, okay? Because sometimes you change your gain staging on how things hit certain plugins, and then you get a very different sound at the end than when you anticipated when you were started. So anyways, that's the sound I settled on. You may like this one more. It's just louder, though. That's the other thing. It's just louder. But it is being crushed, too. So I guess it's not just louder. It's also being, like, the living snot's being crushed out of it. Because it just hits that wall. So that's the bass. Now, if we move on to the melody. And the melody sounds like this guy. Now, I have tried a number of things. They've got this sort of... It's lower. Maybe we could just bring it down an octave. You see, that's not the answer. It's a timbre thing. It's something that's going on inside the plug. But anyways, if you get closer, you could drop your attempt and, be like, hey, look at this. I got a lot closer using these techniques. And I'd be like, oh, that's super cool. So next we have chorus. So next we have this harmor. And it's a saw wave. And there is some unison going on. There is a chorus going on with such and such settings. The depth and speed have been turned quite a ways up. I have experimented pretty heavily with variations on this. And then there's some reverb. However, the thing that makes it sort of sound the way it does is this EQ curve I have. And you can change this quite drastically. I have a feeling though I'm just not going to. I'm missing like some important step somewhere. The reverb, you know, it's all right. And then there's also a part B, which is just a saw wave. Actually, I didn't do anything special to it. And they are both have their own volume envelopes. So these are the volume envelopes I went with. You know. So the harmonics are just pretty high up, but if you detune them, actually, you know, that's kind of okay. It requires some more fiddling though. So you can go mess with that. It's this EQ curve, and then if we go into the post of it, there's a good chunk of stuff happening. There's a little boost right here. It's just an EQ. There's an experiment. I left it there. There is some distortion. If I take away the distortion. So distortion is kind of an important move for getting that bright side of things. Then there's a maximus, pushing the lows down a little bit, bringing up the mids and highs, just expanding them. And they hit a limiter, so it's like that's what goes on there. And then I just mix over here. And then there is a post, an EQ. By the way, that thing I said about the post faders, I'm actually not 100% sure about that right now. We could find out real easy though. If we grab a Maximus, I used to know this like really well, but nope, they are definitely post. Your inserts are before. And so, yeah, I don't know why I questioned myself on that. I was just like nervous about it, I guess. So we have our limiters. They're just crushing it. The snare, and one for the snare, one for the kick. And it's because this is a freaking loud sound. It takes a lot of the spectrum. And then there's another boost right here with, actually there's a dip. So these two sort of cancel each other out. It's one of those things why if you were to show this to a mixing engineer, they'd be like, what are you doing? You don't do that. That's like bad. But to a sound design engineer, you're like, that's just what happened while I was working. So, because if you boost and do that, it's terrible for your noise floor. But we are not very concerned about noise floor here at all. So, anyways, that's what I wound up with. And then, yeah, so those are the two main sounds. There is a bass, a sub bass. The sub bass is just a low pass sine. It's basically just a saw wave that's been low passed down to just a sine wave and a couple of harmonics. As you can see, there's like a bunch of them. There's a sub frequency. This is the one that's an octave below. It's been engaged. There's this EQ curve. It's been blown up. This is actually like the middle, or it doesn't look like the middle, but this is what I was given. No. Yeah, no, I touched this. I brought this all down. I don't know my philosophy for this. I might as well just turn down the volume, but this is what I wound up doing. Yeah, because if we open up a default one. No, that is the default position. I was right the first time. Jeez, I don't know what it is with me today in like double checking crap. But that is the default position. So yeah, I just boosted the highs. That was the idea. I was like, I'll put some more higher harmonic. I'll put that in there. But in reality, this isn't doing that much because there's nothing up there. So it's a dead move. And then it is going into 21, which has nothing on it. I'm not even side chaining it. So, hey, you know, live life on the edge. Next up, I have this kick and snare. I selected a kick. It is going to sidechain the lead, and that is pretty much it. And it is going through a Maximus and a transient master with the attack brought up. So that's what's going on there. The snare is a 2-layer deal. It's this guy, and it's also this clap down at the bottom. And they are pretty snappy stuff because it's a pretty snappy snare in there. So I was like, I'll get something close to that, or at least snappy wise. I boosted the fundamental areas of the snare, and then I boosted the highs, mids, and left the lows where they were. And then that was pretty much all that went on there. Oh, distortion too. Big move. Take it away. It just pops it a little bit more. To me, that's a big move. Maybe it's not a big move to you, but to me, that was like, oh yeah, it's a pretty important deal. And then it's going into 2 buses. I have a reverb bus like so, and a verb and delay bus, which I literally just opened up the verb and left it at default and went to delay. So this is actually a template I made a while ago, but I believe the verb is at default. Something I keep meaning to change too. Okay, so that's what's going on there. And then, of course, the impact sounds, which I've already shown you. You put them all together and you get... Oh, and something, wow, it sounds really empty without it. If we go into the audio, there's also this thing. And the rhythm is a pretty simple rhythm. It's just like 16th notes with the dun, 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 like a quarter and then 2/8. And this one just does eighths. So if you build up and arrive at this in the right way, it could sound really cool. I wouldn't settle with the lead like this, though. I'd probably his lead sounds great. My lead needs some work. And the snare, the hi-hat is pretty nice. It's pretty snappy. There's a little more, the hats and cymbals that he settles on are different, and the pitch and the impacts are generally lower. There's definitely some sort of a layered thing going on because there's some high end if you listen to the first hit, but it's like sort of like, sounds like hitting, I don't know, hitting something that like is sort of crunchy. But you can hear the noise in there. So, it's what it's worth is what I came up with. If it's of use to you, I'm glad. If it's not, then I am sorry. Now, the notes for this are as such. These are the notes I settled on. Literally just fifths. Do 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 do, that kind of a thing. And I put a major third at the beginning. It's kind of hard to tell what pitch. Do 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 do. And so it sounds like that's what I picked out as that. So that is quite a bit lower. That is a harmonic thing. I didn't look at the harmonic spectrum of this lead close enough. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.